Hey everybody, this is Pooka back with round 6, the final round of the Chicago-Illinois Battle Road between Alejandro Luna on the left and Nik Nikodem on the right. Now, in the previous two rounds, we've seen a Eelektrik mirror match and then a Hydreigon mirror match, and now we have the two decks facing off. So here we go. We'll see which one will come out on top in this matchup. So Nik will be going first with the Eelektrik deck. I apologize, looks like Nick's field always seems to be off camera somehow. His discard pile just always gets pushed too far off the screen. But we'll bear with it. We'll see what happens. Now, these two players are not undefeated. The undefeated player actually requested not to be recorded. But we still have this match here for you guys. These guys both are 4-1 at this point. So the winner will be in contention to win the tournament. Depending on how the undefeated player does at the time. If the guy loses, we will have like a 4-way tie for first with a bunch of 5-1 players. And so the winner of this match very well could be the winner of the tournament. We will see what happens though. Looks like Nick doesn't have a great start, but Alejandro has a horrendous one. Looks like he has a couple Junipers in his hand that he doesn't want to play, because maybe he had the rare candy Hydreigon in his hand. But it looks like Nick is going to end him anyway. So we haven't seen too much, but at least the pace is picking up here. We got a headbutt from Alejandro, and then Nick's he's got a fire on his Rayquaza EX, so he could go for some Dragon Burst turn 2 here if he pulls the cards for it. He does play a lot of energy switches, so he could maybe pull that off with an Eelektrik and an energy switch if he retreats the Dynamo. It's a very real possibility. Let's see. What does Nick grab here with this level ball? He's going to take a look. Just going to take a Dynamo. Now, this matchup is a little weird, to be completely honest. Darkrai is very good against Eelektrik decks, just because Night Spear is so good against it. Eelektrik only has 90 hit points, so Night Spear knocks it out. Then the bench damage can really get to it, especially with that 30 hit point Dynamo. And you can see Alejandro's just like, I drew another supporter. I don't want to Juniper all this stuff away. But he has to Juniper away 2 Biancas and 2 Junipers. Ouch. So he might run out of supporters this game. That is the unfortunate state of the game with this format. Sometimes you just have to Juniper away a lot of stuff because, well, Juniper is the best supporter in the format right now, at least in terms of drawing cards. You could probably argue that N is a little better overall, but for just straight up drawing cards, Juniper by far the best supporter in the format. So you have to play it, and you just end up sometimes with these dumb hands where you have to get rid of all this stuff. And there's Ultra Ball, you have to discard even more stuff. So we'll see if he can really come back from all of this stuff going on. Now, he does evolve into the Dragon-type Zweilous. Now, we see an interesting thing happening where a lot of the players, they go, okay, I'm going to play the Dark-type Dino, because if my opponent plays the Shiny Rayquaza, and I use the Dragon-type Dino, he can just knock it out turn 1 with the Dragon Pulse. Does 40 for 1 lightning, and you're weak to Dragon. So they play the Dark-type Dino because he's weak to fighting instead. However, they just go ahead and play the Dragon-type Zweilous, because overall it does have the better attack. It has that attack that can get Dark Energy from the discard pile, attach him to itself. Unfortunately, what this is going to open up is a catcher and then knockout just by 1 energy from the Rayquaza EX Dragon Bursting. If you play the Dark-type Zweilous as well, you don't open yourself up to this Rayquaza nonsense. So it's weird. There's a lot of things that can go on with just card choice in your deck, but it doesn't look like Nick has much going for him. He actually puts down a V-Create Victini. Unexpected, to say the least. He's going to consider retreating. Both these guys are having some slow starts, and he's going to go ahead and Thunder Wave for a big 10 damage. Who's going to set up first here? This is going to be the big question. Now, Alejandro's discard pile is all over the place, but it looks like he's organizing it a little bit. Maybe he's got a Dark Patch here. Oh, he plays an N. Now, it's unfortunate that he had to play that because We knew Nick didn't have anything going for him. And now, who knows what's going to happen. But this is a very scary turn for Nick. If Alejandro can get a Hydreigon out, and then attach, and play a Dark Patch this turn, he can Night Spear and knock out 2 Dynamos. And that's going to be huge. So does he get the cards here for it? Nope, not quite. Gets the Hydreigon, but that's about it. He doesn't have anything else. He's got an Ultra Ball. Maybe if he plays Sableye, he could go grab that. Even that, I don't know how much is going to help him. So he's going to Ultra Ball. He's going to get rid of, looks like, a Max Potion and a Golden Catcher. It's a lot of money, just hit the discard pile. But let's see what he takes with this Ultra Ball. Looks like, yeah, he's going to get a Sableye. And you can see, these guys are friends, but he's looking a little frustrated right now. Things definitely not going his way. He just got no energy on board. That's going to be the problem. And he just had to give Nick a fresh hand of 6. Sometimes that's just N as well. It's a lot of what people complain about with this format is that the supporters just aren't good enough. You have Juniper, which will end up discarding a lot of your other cards that you need. And then you have N, which sometimes it helps your opponent more than it helps you. And then at the end of the game, it's not really a draw card. It can just kind of disrupt you. So he's going to go ahead and catcher out Nick's Mewtwo. Just make it more difficult for him to do stuff. And then junk hunt for a catcher and a random receiver. So random receiver is very good with Sableye, because it gets you a supporter, and then you can just junk hunt for the random receiver. So it's pretty much just junk hunting for a supporter, which is very, very nice. It's always good to have that option. If you're going to play Sableye, you definitely should play random receiver. That's a no-brainer. Now what does Nick have now? If he has a switch, he can pull some shenanigans off. Even if he doesn't, maybe he could pull something off with the Rayquaza. That Hydreigon on the bench is a sitting duck to a Rayquaza. A Dragon Burst knockout. That would be huge. See, Nick actually decides to evolve the Eelektrik with 40 hit points instead of the 30 hit point one. Now, it's interesting that people have started to play a couple of the 30 hit point Dynamos again. It's very risky because of Night Spear and more recently Registeel EX's Triple Laser. The 30 hit points is just such a liability. But still some people have decided to play it anyway. They're like, yeah, I don't care. It's got free retreat, that's good enough for me. If it gets knocked out, whatever, I take the risk. So I think that's interesting. Right around regionals in the spring is when people started to shift away from the 30 hit point Dynamo, and then especially when Darkrai came out. That's when you would stop using it. But it looks like he's got an energy switch and a double colorless and then an N. So Nick is going to play the N. Alejandro will get a new hand of 6. And what is Nick going to do? He could X-Ball the active Sableye. That's going to be a strong play, just because there's no energy on Alejandro's field. He gets a Dark Patch, though, and there's a Tool Scrapper, so he'll get rid of that. Might be a big deal, just because it's one less energy Rayquaza has to have for Dragon Burst to get a knockout. And there we will see an X-Ball for a knockout. And what's going to happen next? I think if you're Alejandro here, you just promote the Hydreigon, because it really doesn't matter what you promote as long as you have a Dark Pokemon on your bench in order to Dark Patch. Everything's going to get free retreat anyway. So yeah, he promotes the Dino. The last thing you want to promote there is the Darkrai, though, because you might end up evolving your Dino into a Dragon type, which means you won't be able to Dark Patch to your benched Pokemon. You have free retreat, so might as well take advantage of it. We do see a Virizion. This is a card that people have started to include a little bit because the draw options, as I've been saying, are so poor sometimes that you need a support Pokemon, and the best we have right now is Virizion. Not too promising, but that seems to be the best we got for support Pokemon right now. We got no more Cleffa, no more Smeargle, none of that stuff. And, I mean, Virizion draws you 2 cards. That's about the best you can do at this point. He doesn't have enough energy to Night Spear. He doesn't have enough to do really anything, so he's just going to draw 2 with Double Draw. and we'll go from here. Now, I'm sure Nick can get some sort of a knockout this turn. It's just what does he want to do it with. He can attach a DCE to the active and X-Ball for 120. That's a good route to go. And then he can just keep powering up his Rayquaza EX on the bench. And it's really, really looking ugly for Alejandro, to be honest. He does not have much energy. There's not a whole lot he could do this game. He didn't have much to work with. He had the supporters, but he had like 4 of them in his opening hand. He had a Juniper away. 3 of them. You know, he had to end Nick into a better hand. This is just a perfect storm of everything going wrong for him. And even though Nick had kind of a slow start, it didn't matter. Because now, things are just looking ugly for poor Alejandro. And he draws the Shaman EX, which won't be helpful right now. So he won't even be able to attack this turn. He doesn't have a Dark Patch. Yeah, you can see the frustration. He's showing Shaman EX. Good card later in the game, but right now, not so good. I don't know what he can do besides just attach to one of his Pokemon. Probably the Darkrai. But even that is kind of a risk. If it gets knocked out, he loses all of his energy. But I don't know what else you can even do at this point. He's going to catch out the Eelektrik to try to buy some time and then pass. Unfortunately, Nick's hand is loaded at this point. It's got Switch, he's got Double Colorless, he's got all sorts of stuff. So unless Alejandro draws an N, and he's going to need a lot of stuff, to be honest. Nick just seems to be so set up that it doesn't really matter. Even if the Mewtwo does get knocked out, the Rayquaza is going to be there to follow up. He's already down to 4 prizes. He's going to be able to switch and take a prize this turn. Things are just looking ugly. And this is what can happen. You know, you think of N as like the great equalizer. You can always come back from these bad starts. But in reality, there are just some situations that you are not going to come back from. And this is probably one of them. Just looking at everything, I mean, that Mewtwo has 7 energy. And there's a Rayquaza waiting on the bench with 2 Eelektriks in play. Ouch. So there's 7 on the Mewtwo. That means he's going to knock out a Darkrai in 1 hit if it's got 3 energy. Unless it has an Eviolite, which was Tool Scrappered away. So I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know if they're having some sort of dispute here, but nothing wrong has happened here. He's just... oh, he's counting up the energy to see if he can knock out the Darkrai. He cannot with what he has out there. But if he has an energy switch, he could pull that off, theoretically, with a catcher. And take 2 prizes and take all the energy off of Alejandro's board. And pretty much win the game from there. I mean, he's pretty much won at this point. This is just a formality. I wish I could say that there is some great play that Alejandro could make. Some epic way to come back to make this the greatest game of all time, but I just don't see a way. I don't really know what he plays in his deck. Maybe he can just go like, boom, Sigilyph, cross my fingers, hope Nick doesn't get a fire energy to power up that V-Create Victini. But even that's obviously not going to work. I'm sure he would eventually lose to Eelektrik, just electric balling him, even in that situation. So Nick, I think he played a level ball for a Dynamo. He's playing a Charon for 3. Really doesn't need to do much at this point. He's already attached the DCE to the active Mewtwo. It's interesting to see how many cards Nick has actually managed to fit into his deck. He has, looks like, I would assume 4 double colorless. He's got a bunch of fire energy, lightning energy as well. He must not play too many lightning, probably like 5 or 6. But he manages to get them in the discard pile. He plays, looks like 3 Mewtwo's, a couple Rayquazas, Victini, a Raikou EX, which is in his hand as well, and a bunch of energy switches. Switch. Yeah, I'm kind of confused, but hey, he manages to make it work, so who am I to judge? He will be able to Dynamotor this turn. Probably just go on the Rayquaza. Might as well. You're going to power it up. so that you can Dragon Burst the next turn. This turn has taken quite a long time compared to what he actually needs to do. There's no real way for him to lose at this point. So, looks like he didn't have the catcher to get the knockout or anything like that. And, yeah, looks like Alejandro is going to catcher up that Eelektrik. We're going to Bianca for 3 cards, I think. 4, sorry. Rare Candy into a Hydreigon. Oh boy. What's going to happen here? The problem is, if he Night Spears, he then gets knocked out by Mewtwo. And he then loses the game. Because he won't have any energy left on his field. And the Rayquaza will be there to knock out anything in the following turns. So he's just going to take the 2 prizes anyway. The Eelektrik and the Dynamo. So at least he can say he did that. But here comes Mewtwo. Once Mewtwo gets this many energy, there is no stopping him unless you have your own Mewtwo. Or a Sigilyph now that that's out. But Nick realizes, alright, he could get his own Mewtwo. So I'm just going to put mine down as a preemptive caution. Maybe get something going. But he also has the Rayquaza EX. He's going to do the math here. He's already got enough energy. You need 10 because of the resistance on Darkrai EX. Since it does have 180 hit points. And I guess this is just going to be slow, painful death for Alejandro. There's not much he can do but sit and watch as he slowly gets X-balled in the face over and over and over until his Pokemon remain no more. Nick, he's just gonna cover all his bases, make sure he can't lose, which is fine. At this point, though, you gotta just kind of assume that you've won when you have all this stuff. Just like, look, you have 7 energy on a Mewtwo. And, yep, he's going to knock out the Darkrai, take all the energy off of Alejandro's board. And I don't think there's any way for him to prevent Mewtwo from knocking him out. He can go try to get, like, Shaman EX with a blend and an Eviolite. But, well, that might work. Alright, he needs, like, a perfect combination of cards, but it can happen. He has the Shaman EX in his hand. He could N Nick to 1. He would get 4 cards. Then he needs a Darkrai, Dark Patch. Looks like he doesn't have the blend either. So he's just going to Juniper and go for it. So he needs a Dark Patch, a Darkrai, a blend, and an Eviolite to survive the turn. And he got the Darkrai. And the Dark Patch. Oh, let's see. Did he get anything else? He got a couple pieces of the puzzle here. Now, he could just retreat here now and promote the Darkrai, move the energy away from it, and possibly survive a turn. That is something that could happen. And if Nick doesn't have a catcher, he won't be able to win this turn. Unless he has a lightning energy, then he can just retreat. And Dragon Burst for the game. He also has a lightning and an energy switch, so yeah, there's really nothing Alejandro can do at this point. Even if he hit all those cards, the Dark Patch, the Darkrai, the Blend, and the Eviolite off his Juniper, he would not have had a chance. He would have gotten down to 2 prizes, but that's pretty much all he could have done. Really just an unfortunate circumstance where his deck did not set up well. Nick's didn't either, but he was the one on the aggressive, and he was the one who was the first to get anything going. And I believe we're just going to see Nick win this turn. These turns have taken quite a while. I'm not sure what he's going to do next. He's probably thinking about where he's going to go out to dinner after this round. There's a nice Portillo's down the street from the event. There's a Burger King. There's a McDonald's. You can walk there. There's a pizza place. There's all sorts of stuff in the area. So yeah, maybe he's just contemplating his options. There's no top cut after this, and oh, there we go. Okay, so Nick gets the 3rd energy on his Rayquaza, Dragon Burst, for the game. So that's going to wrap this up. Nick will be 5-1 after this round. Alejandro will fall to 4-2. Just for the final results, the player named Cameron, he actually did go undefeated. He did not want to be filmed, but he was undefeated with Mewtwo, Eelektrik, and Nick took second. Then the other top 4 decks were another Mewtwo Eelektrik deck and a Darkrai Hydreigon deck. And Alejandro here took 5th. So that's going to wrap it up here from the Chicago, Illinois Battle Road. Sorry this wasn't a better game, but sometimes this is what you get. Not much you can do about it. All we can do is record them and hope for the best. But we're going to have some more Battle Road games when I get to some more Battle Roads and get to record. So stay tuned for more games. We'll always have more content here coming on Top Cut. Thanks for watching, guys. I've been Pooka, and I'll see you guys next time.